In the next few minutes, I'm going to teach you all about Algebra 1. I've been teaching for 50 years, and during that time, I have learned something that your textbooks never tell you. It all boils down to 5 core ideas. Everything else is these ideas wearing costumes, and by the end of this video, you will know which ideas are lying beneath each concept. If you like this type of content, gently tap on that like button and let's dive in. So a variable is not really anything mysterious. All it is a box, and a number is going to be placed in that box. But in math, we use x to represent that box, and x is going to be the missing number, and you can tell just by looking at this what number x would be, so that when you add 5 to it, you would get 12. Of course, that number would be 7, and you did this kind of a problem back in the 3rd grade. So every time you see an x in an equation, just replace it in your head with a box, and the fear goes away, and then it all becomes really simple. Okay, now we're looking at equality, and all that is a balance. And you can see the two sides of this scale are balanced on the equal sign. And whatever I had to do to one side, we are going to have to also do to the other. So I'm removing the 3 on the left, and I also have to remove the 3 on the right. So this becomes 2x equals 8. And now I have to get rid of that 2, and since the 2 is being multiplied by the x, to undo it I have to divide by the 2, both sides. So we end up with x equals 4. And now we have managed to keep the scale balanced, and it did not tip over. And that's what you're always trying to avoid, is that tipping, but we are in balance. Okay, now we're looking at idea number 3, which is every operation has an undo button. And what I mean by this is, look at the example of the shoes and socks. First thing we would do is take off our shoes, and then we would take off our socks. Of course, the reverse of that would be we'd put on our socks first and then put our shoes on. So we're going to look at what we just did in the last slide to keep things in balance. And we started out by subtracting 3 from both sides, because the only way you're going to undo the plus 3 is to subtract 3 from both sides. And then the last thing you would do is divide by that 2, because that was 2 multiplied by x, so we have to divide by it. And at the bottom we see we have the pairs. They're called inverse pairs because they undo each other. We have the plus and the minus, which is addition and subtraction. We have the multiplication and division. They undo each other. And then we have squaring a number versus taking the square root of the number. And this is how we cover the concept of undoing. So now we're looking at idea 4, which is about functions. And functions are nothing more than just machines. And you have to think of the equation as the machine or the function. And we name the function with the letter f in this case, because we have one equation, so we're just calling it f. And the x on the inside of those parentheses just represents the number that we're going to put for the x on the equation itself, which is 2x plus 1. So when we put 3 in there, we get 2 times 3 plus 1, we get 7. If you put 10, then we're going to have 2 times 10 plus 1 is 21. So it's just a machine. If you think of it that way, it doesn't seem so complicated. Okay, now we're looking at idea 5, which are graphs. And graphs are just pictures. And any math class that you ever take, generally you're going to be dealing with graphs somewhere along the line in that course. We usually start this in Algebra 1. And all a graph is just a picture of input and output. You put a number into the equation, you get an answer. And the number you put into the equation is the x, which is the horizontal position on this graph. And the answer you get is the y value, which is the vertical up and down. So you can see with the pair that I have in parentheses, I have a 1, 2. That means if I put a 1 into the equation, 2 times 1 is going to be 2. So 2 is the answer. And if I put a 3 into that same equation, I'm going to get 2 times 3, and we're going to get 6 for the answer. And notice the arrows at the end of that line means that it goes forever, which means that you have an infinite number of numbers you can put into the equation. And then the vertical, it also goes forever. And you have an infinite number of answers you're going to get from that. And so just think of a graph as a picture, and it really makes sense when you think of that line as just made up of an infinite number of numbers that you can put into the equation, which are the horizontal, and then there will be an infinite number of numbers that come out of the equation, and that's the vertical. Okay, and like we said at the beginning, everything else is a costume. So we have the undo button, which was represented by the shoes and socks example we had earlier. And then we have the 2 balance scales, which is talking about equality and the equal sign and making sure that everything stays balanced on both sides. And then we have the machine, which is the equation, and then the picture of what we get when we put a number into the machine and get an answer out of the machine. And that picture is our graph. So this wraps things up. There's all of Algebra 1. Variables are boxes. Equality is a balance. Every operation has an undo button. Functions are machines. Graphs are pictures. Next up, calculate faster than a calculator. Subscribe.